Hey everybody, thanks for joining me in session 183 of the Behavioral Observations podcast. And by the way, happy World Behavior Analysis Day. That's right. Today is indeed World Behavior Analysis Day, or at least the day in which I'm publishing this episode, and that's March 20th, 2022. If you don't know much about World Behavior Analysis Day, or WBAD as it's referred to in its acronym form, well, I'm in the same boat as you, or at least I was before this conversation, with the president of the World Behavior Analysis Day Alliance, Elizabeth Drago. So in this episode, we take a deep dive in, why they created it, what does it do. We talk about some of the dissemination efforts from an international perspective. They got a lot of cool stuff going on with regard to that. They have this ambassador program that's really neat that I think you're going to really enjoy learning about, and a whole host of other things. They've got big plans for the future as well. I don't want to spoil it all here, and I want to keep these opening marks very, very brief so we can get right to the conversation. So I hope you enjoy this episode of this very special episode commemorating World Behavior Analysis Day. Before we get to the Elizabeth's interview, I do want to let you know that we're brought to you by the Verbal Behavior Conference, which is coming right around the corner. It's on April 7th and 8th. It's available virtually as well as it'll be in person for the first time in a couple of years down in Austin, Texas. I will be there on site, which I'm really looking forward to. And I'll be chairing a panel discussion at the end of the first day. And there are a lot of other amazing speakers. If you want to learn more, go to behaviorlive.com/VBC, or just go to the show notes for this episode, and I'll have a link waiting for you there. But please do sign up because it's going to be coming up really quickly. And if you're down in Austin at the event, please be sure to say hello. All right, I think that is it for opening remarks. So without any further delay, please enjoy this fun conversation with Elizabeth Drago.
Welcome to the Behavioral Observations Podcast, stimulating talk for today's behavior analysts. Now here's your host, Matt Sikoria.
Elizabeth Drago, welcome to the Behavioral Observations Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you, Matt? Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, I'm doing well. Except, I am having a kind of weapons grade FOMO, case of FOMO right now because it's the APBA conference in New Orleans.
Same.
And
yes.
I'm seeing all of our friends and colleagues down there having a great old time.
Yes.
So,
I was, I attended back in NOLA a few years back. I forget which year it was, but what a blast.
Oh, yeah.
Such a great time.
Yeah. I think that's where we met in person there, if I'm not mistaken.
That was okay.
Yeah,
yes. We've
you
met
and,
a few different times, and okay. So yes, that's right.
You were with fellow, or I guess former Long Island homegirl, Amanda Nara.
Nara. Yes. That was a great time.
Yeah.
A lot of memories.
So as much as it'd be fun to reminisce about New Orleans, we do have something very important to talk about, and you're just the person to bring this knowledge to the audience. So again, I'm so happy that you're able to join me to talk about this, and that is the World Behavior Analysis Day. This is something I've seen online here and there. And this is really fun for me because I'm approaching this from, from very little information. So this is going to be news to me, as it will be to those in the audience who are also not familiar with it. So I'm looking forward to digging into that. Before we get there, though, let's start the show like we always do. I'd like to hear a little bit more about kind of your perspective and your background. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you discovered ABA? What made you want to pursue it as a career, and kind of bring us up to speed in terms of what you're doing now in the, I suppose when you're not, heading up this Behavior Analysis Day endeavor.
In WBAD mode.
WBAD, yeah.
Yeah. So initially I went to school. I have my degree in clinical psychology. And so after I graduated with my master's degree in psychology, I got right into the field. That was back in gosh, when did 2000? 2002, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Time flies.
Sure does.
Yeah. I interviewed for a position working in a group home for adults diagnosed with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I was hired on the spot. I mean, just cold hired. I had zero experience right out of college. And so I was immersed. I was thrown into that environment, which was a bit intimidating at first. And, as the years progressed, I stayed working at that agency. It was based out in the Queens area. I was in the Brooklyn area for quite some time and then slowly transitioned out to Long Island. And so after a few years working in that setting, it seemed, and maybe it was just the agency I was in, but a lot of the interventions that we were practicing seemed very reactive in a sense, right? So things would happen, we would react. And, I said there has to be a better way to this. There needs to be more that I'm just not picking up on. And so a very close friend of mine, Olga Silovich, who's actually a behavior analyst, she's in Florida. She mentioned to me, hey, did you hear about this thing, behavior analysis? You can become certified. So I said, no, tell me more. What's this all about? And so she shared with me the information just about the science in general, because believe it or not, in my education, all throughout my school years, I was never educated on behavior analysis. So it was my first time learning about it. I was fascinated as soon as she, talked with me about the principles and the understanding about looking at behavior change measures in the context of environmental variables. And so I said, that makes such incredible sense. When you're coming from a psychology background, a lot of it is insightful. A lot of it is like talk strategies. And many of those interventions, they just don't apply, or they just don't generalize for the most part to the population I was working with at the time, which was the intellectual disabilities and the developmental disability population. And so I said, I'm going to give this a shot. And I applied to the Penn State University program for behavior analysis and finished my coursework. And I want to say 2009 it was. 2011. I finished with that and I took a few years off. And I absolutely love behavior analysis as soon as I got into the coursework and dug deep into it. I knew this was where I needed to be. It just made complete sense to me. And so I just knew I was going to go forward with it. Took some time off after I graduated. And then in 2014, I took the exam, I passed, and then I became a behavior analyst and started working in home settings, actually. And that's where I've been ever since. I do applied work in home settings out where I live, which is in Long Island. And I love it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Were the individuals that you were supporting in those early group home experiences, did they have repertoires of challenging behaviors? Was that the
very
context?
Much so?
Okay.
Yes, it was what they called, and I know the term ICF is, they're starting to, the intermediate care facilities, they're starting to transition away from those, but they were all ICF. So intense level type of standard of care where you have individuals who have significant skill deficits in, regards to everything from communication to just daily living skills, and then also very significant problem behavior. So most of my time was, doing what they called skip intervention. I don't even know if it's termed that anymore, but those, physical interventions to, ensure safety.
Mm-hmm.
That was what I did for the most part of my day, every day for many, many years. And that got very, challenging physically and emotionally, of course.
Yeah, I spent some of my formative experiences in residential settings, and it's just it's tough work, and the people out there still working in those settings deserve a lot of credit because it's really
Absolutely.
a challenging environment for sure. And it's one of those
Very
things,
much so.
I really wish. It's kind of one of those things. I guess it's good because the field is growing and figuring out better ways to support individuals. And I really wish I had the skills then that I have now. I think I could be a more effective behavior analyst for some of those clients. And so I'm hoping that work is perhaps somewhat less challenging these days.
I'm hoping so too. I'm hearing, a lot of good things are being done in group home settings, which is amazing.
Great. Good to hear. All right. So I appreciate that bit of background. I think that provides a really great context of your point of view as a practitioner in the trenches, certainly. So let's talk about, as we're calling it WBAD, the World Behavior Analysis Day. So I suppose an appropriate place to start might be letting people know what World Behavior Analysis Day is. But I want to start someplace just slightly different. We'll get to that, of course. But what I really want to know, I guess perhaps to start off with, is why we have a World Behavior Analysis Day. In other words, what was the inspiration behind it? Was there a problem that you were trying to solve? And so if you could tell me a little bit about the development of it, and I suppose from there we can kind of transition to what it is, of course, but I really want to know why it came about and the circumstances under which the idea was hatched.
Yeah, of course. So being in the field for quite some time, and just speaking to folks in general, just, people who maybe don't have a lot of understanding of behavior analysis, it was just so apparent to me that there's so many misinformation out there, and there still is. I mean, it's just so vast, and a lot of people aren't aware of what behavior analysis is. You get that when you say, "Oh, I'm a behavior analyst." Oh, so okay. So you're like a psychologist, are you evaluating my behavior? Are you analyzing me? I just got that the other day.
If I had a nickel for every time I heard that, I could retire comfortably.
Same. Yeah. So, the misunderstanding of that just in my own personal life and, in my conversations with people, in addition to, I didn't mention that I'm involved with NYSABA, New York State Association for Behavior Analysis. I'm on the board of directors as rep at large as well. And I've been on for a number of years. I'm also a committee member for the legislative committee, which recently changed to the public policy committee. And where this idea really just hit home to me is when we started to get into conversations with legislators about changing that really horrendous licensure restriction of practice that we had in New York State recently, that thankfully, as of a few months ago, was lifted.
Oh, can we just take a quick sidetrack? Can you give just a little the kind of Reader's Digest version of what the before and after conditions were? Because I think you guys definitely had a victory in advocacy for behavior analysis that deserves some mention. So if you can just tell us a little bit about what the restrictions were and what it is now, I think it's a great success story.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. What a success story. So in New York State, back in 2014, we had the behavior analysis licensure law introduced, and there was a significant restriction placed on that licensure law, which was behavior analysts can only practice with individuals diagnosed with autism. And so basically, in a sense, it was illegal for us to practice behavior analysis outside of anyone not diagnosed with autism, which is just, that statement alone is mind-blowing. Because as we know, behavior is behavior regardless of diagnosis. It's not strictly related to just individuals diagnosed with autism. And so we accepted that restriction, knowing down the line that we were going to have to advocate for the removal of it. And we did that just to get the insurance mandates in place so we can then provide behavior analysis to people with insurance. And so that's where it originated from. Many, many years down the road, we were still advocating each year. It was not it did not even go to committee for them to consider removing the restriction. Luckily, as of this year, and thanks to our amazing chairperson, Debbie Napolitano, and our co-chair, Maureen O'Grady, and our lobbyist, Julia Donnarumma, I mean, they were champions. They were champions in advocating for the removal of this restriction, and it was successful. So thank you to them and to everybody that was on the legislative committee. I was so thankful to be a part of that. That restriction has been officially removed from the licensure law. And so there are still some, parameters in regards to practice, but yeah, it's not just only for individuals diagnosed with autism. So yeah, wonderful.
All right. Well,
success.
Congratulations. And by extension, I apologize because I kind of took you off track from the WBAD story, but I felt it was important to kind of pause on that for a moment, provide some extra context. So talk a little bit. So let's get back to the World Behavior Analysis Day. So, so you're saying that in your interactions with quote unquote normal people, or lay people, they didn't know what behavior analysis was and things like that. So I believe that's kind of where you were, right?
Yeah. And then also, coupled with speaking with the legislators about behavior analysis, because they also were confused about what our role was. And it was such a talking point for me. It was such a great idea to maybe, get in the back door in a sense of speaking to them in a relatable way. Like, hey, do you know that this science has an international day that recognizes it? And let me give you some more information about that. So it was really just a platform that I was hoping to use as a talking point to help people, help it be a little bit more relatable for people to accept, right? Because everybody loves international days, right? Sure. Or national days. There's a national day for everything. And so why not? And so that was really what gave me the idea. And also as a rep at large position, I wanted to bring something unique to the board. And so I pitched it to the other board of directors on ISABA. I said, hey, what do you all think about creating this? It was initially a national day, but then we decided to broaden it to international. And they loved the idea. And they, ushered the process along and connected me with some key folks in the field to get it moving in the right direction.
Excellent. So I think now is probably not a bad time to talk about, okay, so what does it do? What is the function of this day? What is, so we got the idea of the need for it, or at least the inspiration for it. So tell us a little bit more about the, what's involved in World Behavior Analysis Day. A little bit more detail, please.
So it's officially recognized as a week-long celebration from March 14th to March 20th that formally acknowledges and celebrates the science of behavior analysis and also provides that educational piece. It's just a platform, like I was mentioning just earlier, for that education of the science and how we utilize the science in our everyday lives. And we, a lot of times, aren't even aware of it. And so we do have an official organization that was developed soon after the proclamation, which was awarded from the National Day Archives recognizing the day. We developed an official organization that is strictly devoted to World Behavior Analysis Day and initiatives that go along with it, which I know we're going to speak about soon. And the organization is amazing. Our mission with the organization is to facilitate the international celebrations of the science. And so we're kind of viewing it, and this is also our vision, as like a hub in a sense that promotes the inclusive celebration of the science and just helps spark growth in the awareness, acceptance, and use of the science. And again, as a talking point for people to, help others know that, hey, the science, you practice it every day. And this is how, right? Giving real life practical examples of things, which our video that's going to be premiered on the 20th really highlights. So I hope you tune into that. That's going to be fun.
Great. This question just kind of occurred to me as we were chatting here. And so what is the nature, if to the extent there is any, in terms of interactions that you and your colleagues have with perhaps other professional organizations in the behavior analysis field, like APBA, ABA International, the board, et cetera. Can you talk about that first? I'm just curious in terms of what, how is it received amongst those organizations, what interactions, if any, that you have and so forth?
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned it because there were so many amazing folks involved in this project, just getting it together. Of course, in addition to NISABA, we had the BACD who actually funded this project. I met with Dr. Carr and Dr. Noziak, and I discussed with them. I basically pitched the idea to see if they were interested in supporting it. Not only did they support it, they funded it.
Nice.
They also created our logo. So you see the logo, the swirl with, World Behavior Analysis Day. They developed that for us, which is amazing. We've had so many behavior analytic organizations involved with this project. In addition to NISABA, we had Virginia ABA, we had Brett Denovi and Associates. He was his company played a great role. ABAI, APBA, Dr. Gina Green was instrumental in creating the justification for the day to submit to the National Day Archives for approval. She was very involved in the entire process of the application process to get the day approved. So she was wonderful. B.F. Skinner Foundation, we had, let's see, I have my list of folks here, and I'm sure I'm missing some folks, which I'll kick myself after. We had Arizona Association for Behavior Analysis, Delaware Association. I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
Okay.
It's just a tremendous initiative that most people, everyone I spoke to, was on board with when I spoke to them.
Very cool. And if if other organizations come to mind, we can certainly link those to the show notes of this episode, as well as any other resources that come up in this conversation. So, well, that's great. I really that's really cool to hear how everyone kind of rallied around this. Elizabeth, one of the things that was interesting to me in the materials that you sent me was the ambassador program. Can you describe what that is, and what it is in general? What do ambassadors do? What supports do they have to do it, et cetera?
Yeah, this ambassadors program it's incredible. It falls under the auspices of the International Affairs Committee, which is a part of World Behavior Analysis Day Alliance. So, we have a million acronyms in behavior analysis, as you know. If you don't have an acronym, you're just not a behavior analyst. So we do. And so WBAD is, just to, clarify some acronyms. WBAD is a reference to the actual celebration week, World Behavior Analysis Day. WBAD Alliance is the organization. So it's either WBAD Alliance or WBADA. And so we have a number of committees. We have social media marketing, we have the International Affairs Committee, a programs committee, student affairs committee. And so the ambassador role falls under the International Affairs Committee. And the chair of that is Mariana de los Santos. And the co-chair is Janet Enrique Sanchez. And they are absolutely outstanding. They have developed this program from the ground up, and we currently have 23 ambassadors internationally. Believe it or not, we do not have an American ambassador yet. They're all international so far, and it's outstanding. A few roles that they have is sharing information in their region about behavior analysis. And so like developing resources, we are so new as far as an organization, and we're kind of shaping up all these roles as we go. But we eventually want to begin developing resources translating resources. And all of this is the ambassadors are going to be hands-on with, because obviously we are not qualified to translate, multiple languages. And so they're going to be really helpful in that, and, sharing the information and the resources that are developed. Of course, engaging with folks about behavior analysis, those interested in behavior analysis in their region, assisting with the celebratory events. So a lot of them are helping out now, getting their region just informed about World Behavior Analysis Day. We're translating the logos. We have many, I want to say 22 logo translations right now, which is outstanding. And also recruitment. And so those are the basic roles, as we learn and as we get the feedback from the ambassadors, that may be shaped up as we go. But those are the few roles that they have currently.
So if, I think it's safe to say the majority of this audience is in North America and beyond that, mainly places like the UK and New Zealand, Australia, and English-speaking countries and things like that. But it does reach beyond that at a smaller scale. So if it's the case that someone's listening to this and there's in their country that perhaps is not represented, should they and want to learn more about this, are you recruiting more ambassadors? Should people be reaching out to you or to someone else in the organization to inquire about this?
Yeah. So Mariana and Janet are leading up this initiative, and anyone interested in applying for the ambassador position can email them at international@behavioranalysisday.com. Yeah, I'll send you that information to that.
Super. Well, that's really exciting. We talk about dissemination so much in this field, and more so in terms of sharing what we have to offer with people who are not familiar with it. Perhaps less so disseminating along the dimension of perhaps geography, and as you spoke to a few minutes ago, and that includes language, of course, too. So, hats off to you guys for branching out in that direction and getting the message out there, quite literally. So that's really, really cool. Hey everyone, as a BCBA, meeting your continuing ed needs can be challenging at times. That's why I have made selected episodes of the Behavioral Observations podcast available for Type 2 continuing education credits. That's right. You can meet a portion of your professional development requirements on the go. Currently, we have CEs for topics including functional assessment, ethics, and supervision. Come learn from podcast favorites such as Greg Hanley, Pat Fryman, Mark Dixon, as well as many other amazing guests. For more information, head on over to behavioralobservations.com/get-CEs. I'm going to ask a question. I hate it when I get asked these types of questions because I just don't know. But I'm going to ask you to look into your crystal ball for a minute. So World Behavior Analysis Day, or the World Behavior Analysis Day Alliance, is obviously a new entity, a new organization. I'd really be curious to hear what you think the alliance and the activities that go along with what you're doing here. What do you think it would look? What are your plans, and where would you like to see everything in 5 years or 10 years? And you can kind of choose whatever interval of time that perhaps makes the most sense to talk about. But I'm just curious what the growth potential is, and maybe gets a sneak peek at some plans for down the road, or at least a vision of what can be down the road.
We have so many plans. I have to say, after this month is up, we're meeting in April as a board and talking about all the initiatives we have in place, which are really exciting. But as far as just overall general, things I would love to see happen in a few years from now is, of course, branching out further to have representatives in most regions across the globe, which would be fantastic. Always, the focus is share in the science and help it to be better understood from folks. In speaking with the ambassadors, we've had a few meetings with them just to get to know them a little bit better. It's amazing to me how much, behavior analysis and just folks, let's say, who are diagnosed with autism in, international areas who, many people who aren't familiar with behavior analysis don't understand how to respond to individuals who exhibit certain behaviors. And it's really eye-opening to hear the sad stories, basically. And so, the ambassadors just express such interest and delight, I would say, in having the opportunity to, share this information, hopefully get the word out and the teachings of the science to help people in those areas who have no understanding of what the science is and how it could be helpful to them. So that's my number one goal is and we're tracking that, as of course we are with data, to see how much we grow in our reach in regards to that and our effectiveness. And the ambassadors are helping tremendously with that. But I also would like to see, behavior analysts obviously are experts in the field of behavior analysis, right? And us all celebrating amongst each other is wonderful. But we have to reach out beyond just the group of scientists, right, that behavior analysts are, and reach the folks who are just in the community and, at the local, school district, at PTA meetings, which I'm a part of. I'm on a board for my son's PTA, and that's an amazing group of people that I can, access to teach. Mm-hmm. So, it's really important for me to get the word out beyond just behavior analysts. So we know all this information, right? We have to share that. And so that would be a really big goal of mine. And I should have mentioned, as far as another initiative, we have this government proclamation project that Christy Evenko, she's the treasurer for World Behavior Analysis Day and just a great behavior analyst in the field. With Matt, I know you know Christy.
Oh, absolutely. She's been on the show.
Yeah. She's leading up a really wonderful initiative in WBAD Alliance, which is a government proclamation project. And actually, in her state of Virginia, she was the first to get it approved. And so what this project is having these state legislators. And so, for example, in Virginia, Christy presented World Behavior Analysis Day and, what the whole idea and the premise behind the day was to get it officially recognized in the state. And so it went through the legislative process and it was signed off on, and that is official now. So in the state of Virginia, every March of every year between the 14th and the 20th is officially World Behavior Analysis Day or Week celebration, which is phenomenal. And so New York is next in line, of course, because I had to jump on that. Right. That's in our legislator, right? That's in the legislative committees right now. And we are hoping by the end of this week, it may go through. So New York might be the second, but that's another goal. A long-term goal is to have that acknowledged in every state and beyond internationally. I don't know how that would generalize in other governments internationally, but we want to get that done.
I see. What are your funding needs? If people are, are you in a Are you guys a 501c nonprofit status now, or if not, is that something that's in the pipeline? And I ask that are you guys in the mode of where you're soliciting for monetary support and things like that? Can you talk a little bit about your, status and funding needs and things like that?
Yeah, sure. So we are officially incorporated and we have filed for our 501c3 status last year, and it is still under review just because of the backlogs with where it was filed in the state that it was filed in. But we are hoping that will happen this year, where we'll get that 501c3 status. We'll be an official non-for-profit organization, and then we'll be able to accept donations. right now, because we're not official, we're kind of a little weary of accepting donations.
Okay.
But once we are, we will promote that, and we'll provide information in regards to that. And that would be great, because that will really help us with our dissemination efforts once
For
we
sure.
start getting that in
Yeah,
place.
when that happens, let me know. I'd be happy to spread the word with regard to that, and certainly donate personally. So
it's great. Thank you, Matt.
So I know you're on a tight timeline this afternoon here, and so I just get a couple more questions for you, and then I can let you get on with your day. But one of the things I'm curious, this is just such a novel area of work for people in our field. I'm curious, were there any lessons learned or experiences that you didn't expect? I'm just curious in taking on this massive endeavor, were there any kind of discoveries made along the way, just from whether personal observations or aha moments and things, in that realm? What can you speak to that?
Sure. There were a few. Some very real life practical things is scheduling for people to have meetings in these various international time zones. It's crazy. I'm an expert at that at this point.
So are you is it like a doodle poll from hell or something like that?
Oh my goodness. I can't even tell you, because on our board, so we have 12 board of director members, and our board of director members are amazing. And we have people representing from Japan, Africa, folks in the United States, also Mexico. And so, I'm using Japan, Dr. Sakurako Tanaka. She is our Japan board of directors member. And that is a 12, 13, 14-hour time difference. And so imagine that. Yeah, scheduling nightmare. And she's such a sport. She'll wake up at 2 a.m. to meet with us. It's just, wow. She's a champion. I never, ever expect that from her. I'm shocked to see her pop up on our Zoom screen.
That's commitment right there.
That sure is commitment. So that's just a funny, side note of things.
I was thinking about that when you're talking about the international community, because it's, I've done 1-to-1 interviews with people in like Australia and Europe and things like that. And I remember one time I was like, I think I started an interview at like 10 o'clock at night or something like that once, but to get, and that's just, two conversational partners, but to corral a dozen people or more in all these various time zones just sounds like that alone is a monumental task.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's quite interesting, but I'm learning a lot.
Got it.
Time zones is one of them. Absolutely. Yeah. I've learned quite a few things. I think I mentioned just earlier in regards to when speaking with the ambassadors, just the level of unawareness about our science is just it. I know that's there. It's just interesting to hear these stories and heartbreaking in many respects. And so, that's just another thing that just kind of lights my fire and keep moving forward. And this is a purpose for us, and we have space here. And so, it's a great thing.
Yeah. Anything you can do to transition people towards that circumstantial view of life, as Pat Fryman likes to say. So, is there anything else about this whole, movement endeavor? I keep calling it different things, but the WBAD Alliance that you'd like to mention that I haven't thought to ask about, Elizabeth?
Just that, we're growing, we're expanding. Our board of directors seats, like I mentioned, is officially full, which has been a long feat, and that's incredibly exciting. We do have a number of initiatives that I haven't mentioned that I'm looking forward to sharing, after this celebration month has ended. We have so many plans in place that it's really exciting. And it's great to see organizations during this week celebrating and highlighting and, sharing on social media what they're doing for their staff. I mean, we're hearing of parties, contests, giveaways, which also, our organization is participating in as well. We have T-shirt giveaways that we're doing daily. It's just fun. It's so nice to see because, there's division all the time, but I feel like especially just within the last few years, the division just amongst people in general has been just awful. And so it's nice to have this one week where everybody is just on the same page and everyone is celebrating for, one specific thing, and it's positive and the energy is just so live. Even when, virtually online, it's just, you can feel that positive energy radiating, and it's just so contagious and exciting.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. And so if people want to learn more about this, where is there a website they could visit? Are you guys on, I assume that you guys have social media channels, et cetera. Nice. And I could certainly put those in the show notes for this episode, but if you have any of those off the top of your head to mention, we can certainly do that as well.
Yeah, we're everywhere. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we are on LinkedIn and YouTube. And if you want to find us, just doing a search of World Behavior Analysis Day or Behavior Day, I believe that's Instagram. On Instagram, it's Behavior Day. You'll find it just by searching. Yeah. And then, Excellent. Of course, on YouTube, World Behavior Analysis Day, we're there. We have a number of amazing videos, thanks to Dr. Paulie Gavoni and Anika Costa. They're just phenomenal.
Yes, they are.
Creating this content. It's amazing. We actually had a university reach out to us asking us for permission to use the videos as their teaching tools for their students. So
that's terrific.
Outstanding.
Yeah. Huge shout out to Paulie and Anika for sure. Mm-hmm, so those guys are
absolutely
powerhouse content creators. So we're fortunate to have them in the field. I've gotten to know them much better in the last little bit. So anyway,
good people, good people.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Very good. Very good. Well, our time here is about to elapse, and I know you've got to go be mom here in a very short.
And painter.
And painter, yeah. And it's that part of the contract that says, and other duties as assigned, right?
Right.
So, how about you send us off here with some advice for the newly minted BCBA? So, what would you say to that person who just passed the exam and maybe they're out looking for a job or they're in their first job or what have you? Put yourself back in their shoes for a minute, and what would you want to know? What would you want them to know that you know now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that you kept this segment in your podcast. It's been since day one with your podcast, and it's great that it's still here because it's awesome. Well, I can only speak to, my applied arena, which is working, directly with children and adults in home settings. But I would say to a newly minted BCBA, be humble, because you have a lot to learn. What you learn in school is all great, but once you get actually in that environment, you realize how much you don't know and how much you need to know. And so be flexible in your thinking, seek out the mentors, of course. I'm sure you get that advice on your show from folks all the time with this question.
It's good, though, because as we know, repetition helps, right? So I think it's good that these themes get returned to with some amount of frequency. So
yeah. And it amazes me after 20 years in the field and how much information I'm learning and how much I realize, wow, I should have known this. Why haven't I known this by now? So always be open, be flexible, think outside of the box with strategies. And, can I give like a really quick example?
Sure.
I know we're... in regards to thinking outside the box, one small but really powerful example is I was working, and this is still one of my clients, a young boy who we're teaching, doing toilet training, which is always so fun. He was really challenging to teach for whatever the reason. It was taking months, a little longer than, not that there's an expectation of time when that skill is learned, but it seemed like something was off. So we've tried all these different strategies. One day, now this is about 6 months after, maybe a little longer, Mom mentioned to me, when he stood at the toilet, he went to the bathroom. And we always started with being seated. That's just always how I was trained. You're seated, and that's how you learn. Boy, girl, it doesn't matter. And so I said, okay, you know what? We're going to have him stand and see how it goes. Sure enough, this child is now 100% toilet trained because he goes standing up rather than sitting down. That's his preference. It took months. So thinking outside the box, even when the team was like, I don't know if we should do that. We might confuse him. Should we do? And I said, let's just try. And we tried and it worked. So just be flexible. Take that chance, right? Make that suggestion. You never know. You'll be surprised. So
all right.
My long story.
Very cool. Elizabeth, I'm so glad. I know we were trying to figure out whether or not we could actually pull this off today. I'm so glad we made it happen. And I'm so glad to learn more about this World Behavior Analysis Day, the Alliance, and everything else that goes along with it. Congratulations on putting all this together. Certainly both to you and your colleagues as well. So happy World Behavior Analysis Day.
Yes, thanks, Matt, for getting this on. I appreciate it. And yes, happy World Behavior Analysis Day.
Thank you for listening to the Behavioral Observations Podcast with Matt Sikoria. You can find Matt's notes on this episode at www.behavioralobservations.com. We also invite you to stay connected with us on Facebook at facebook.com/behavioral observations and on Twitter at Behavior Podcast.